What is up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Sports Status Podcast. This is your host, Nate the Great, going solo for the first time in a long time. Cole, unfortunately, will not be able to make it on, and neither would Logan. So I'm going to go ahead and go solo for the first time in a very long time. But with that all being said, I do have a couple of topics for today that I do want to cover. One, the Super Bowl. Super Bowl just happened this last Sunday, and the Super Bowl was very, very close. Final score was, final score, as we all know, Kansas City wins their third Super Bowl, second Super Bowl in about 5 or so years, and it all went down to the wire. Things I were right about heading into this game. One, Kansas City was going to win by 3 points, but I was wrong about Jalen Hurts. He was able to throw the ball very deep, he was able to make some deep passes. And so I gotta eat my crow on that one. But Kansas City won because Philadelphia wasn't able to make their adjustments when it came down to the second half of the game. Now, after the game was over, Philadelphia both lost their offensive and defensive coordinator. Now, defensive coordinator goes their defensive coordinator is now the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals, and he will be going and running that show throughout. He'll be running Arizona for about. He has signed a 5-year contract with Arizona. I have mixed emotions on that. One, I don't like that he's a defensive coordinator. Two, is when it came down to the Super Bowl, and I think this is really why others are disagreeing. I think this is why others are seeing the same thing. The defense didn't make any adjustments. And this is what, are we really going to be seeing that throughout the rest of, throughout Arizona this next season? I mean, Kyler Murray's not playing. Okay, I get that. Throughout, up until November. DeAndre Hopkins probably won't be a Cardinal next year. So there probably won't be very many wins unless they're able to pull up, Arizona's able to pull up anything, that make any move that is shocking. Make any move to go out and basically win games. But it really depends on all of what they do in the draft. And it's just going to be an interesting season. But I ended up getting off topic and sidetracked because I ended up talking about Arizona. Now, going back to Philadelphia, Jalen Hurts, I think what would be a smart decision is Jalen Hurts I think it would be smart to go ahead and sign Jalen Hurts to a contract extension now. A few years ago, Kansas City, Patrick Mahomes signed the biggest contract extension. And the NFL is, with these quarterbacks, It's all about making whoever makes the most money. And that contract that Patrick Mahomes signed was the largest at the time. It's not even top 4 anymore. And Mahomes, not to mention, he is part owner of the Kansas City, uh, owner of the Kansas City Royals. However, the contract that he signed was in 2022 was a 10-year, $450 million contract that took effect. This was not, um, this was a huge contract. I know it's only a few years, but eventually what we've been seeing the past few years, there's going to be guys after guys and after guys, and it's all really about who is making the most amount of money. Do not be shocked if Lamar, and I think that's part of the problem with Lamar. They didn't go ahead and make the move to sign Lamar to a big contract extension a few years ago, right when he was, right when I'm not saying last year, I'm talking 2 years, 3 years ago, right when they were making the playoffs, right when they were making the playoffs. And even though that besides the Titans, Lamar doesn't have any playoff wins, they didn't end up signing him to a contract extension. Now, I feel like that's part of the reason they have this holdback now. Now the Ravens historically have been known for a team to get quarterbacks like Joe Flacco and Trent Dilfer to go out and win these Super Bowls. But my point is, they sign if Lamar ends up signing a huge contract with the Ravens, it's going to be huge now, but in a couple of years, it's probably not going to be the biggest contract in the NFL. So I think that Philadelphia, since Jalen Hurts did go to a Super Bowl, I think they shouldn't do what Baltimore has done and wait it out until Jalen Hurts goes to the end of his contract. I think that they should sign him now. But they also are running into another problem. They already lost an offensive and a defensive coordinator. I probably would say that there's going to be guys on both sides of the ball that are leaving to go to either Indianapolis or to Arizona. Maybe you see like a linebacker or two go to Arizona. You see a couple of players here and there go to Arizona and follow those coordinators over there. I expect you're probably going to see the same thing with the Saints to follow Sean Payton. And you're probably going to see the same thing with the Colts to follow Frank Reich. And you're probably going to see that same thing with the 49ers to follow DeMeco Ryans to Houston. Because these coaches, because that is really the only amount of loyalty that you see really in the NFL. Um, you know, you don't really see guys that play on their original team anymore, and that's been a problem for years. I get that, but you don't see guys play on the team that they played on anymore. You don't see. I mean, Dallas is probably the only exception to that. They're loyal to default. Indianapolis, they go through quarterbacks. They've gone through quarterbacks after quarterback after quarterback after quarterback all since Andrew Luck retired. And I think that's why Frank Wright. And I think that is why Frank Wright started as the manager. It's not really because of Matt Ryan. I think it's because he wanted out. I think that's really what Philadelphia, I guess really the biggest storyline is who's gone, who's leaving and who's staying. Sorry, I just got a couple of text messages. I'm gonna ignore Facebook for now. And that for Kansas City, the storyline for there, I mean, the biggest storyline for Kansas City is that they're in a much tougher conference than Philadelphia. You know, I've heard this on a couple of other shows. I just can't stop thinking about it. Now, for those that are watching the show right now, Jalen Hurts, without a doubt, is probably the best quarterback in the NFC right now. Who's two? There's Aaron Rodgers, but he's probably going to be a New York Jet. Dallas has been having the same issue every single time. And I get that Dallas they aren't the greatest. But they've been able to make the playoffs every year, almost every year. But hasn't been able to get past the divisional round. Minnesota, they struggle winning primetime games. Now, I can't blame all that on Kirk within this last playoff game. I can't blame any of that at all on him. But that's only one example. I think there's a stat that Kirk Cousins, before heading into this season, and I say before that because I think they beat New England in Thanksgiving. There was a stat that Kirk Cousins has won 2 playoff games. And those 2 playoff games were against the Chicago Bears. Since he became a Minnesota Viking. Really in his entire career, I think. So Chicago's not so Minnesota is not, I wouldn't really want to put it in there. But then again, listening to the same show, there was a third guy that could also very well consider. That's Jared Goff. He has always been able to put up the stats. And there was really one year and that was the year that he became a Detroit Lion, where his numbers were awful. But that was just 1 year. Um, 2022, this last year, he threw for over 4,000 yards. That was the third highest he's ever thrown. That was the third highest he's ever thrown. He's thrown a 29-7 ratio. 7 interceptions, 29 touchdowns. Passer rating is almost 100. If you look at 2021, okay, his completion percentage, really his completion percentage year by year, except when going 2018 to 2019, has just been going up. His worst completion percentage was in 2016, but he only threw 5 touchdowns that year. But even during those 5 touchdowns, he still threw 7 interceptions. Now, to be fair, he only played 7 games, but his rookie season wasn't that year. You go into the first year where he played every single game as most of the games as his starter. 20 LA Rams, started 15 games, went 11-4. And again, like I was saying, most of his stats are just going up. The only thing that didn't is in 2019 he led the league in passing attempts. So there's that. But you got to ask yourself, name besides Jalen Hurts and maybe Kirk Cousins, name me a quarterback that had a better completion passer rating than Jared Goff. And I wasn't really, to be honest, when ASAP first started, I wasn't really that high on him. I am more now. But I know I'm going really good, right into detail for this. I think AFC is in a much more is a much deeper competition. You obviously got the big 3: Buffalo, Cincinnati, Kansas City. Then you got Chargers, and then you got Jacksonville, and you got the Ravens, and then Broncos got Sean Payton. Who knows how that's going to go next year? And then there's the Dolphins. They can make another playoff run as Tua is healthy. There is a much deeper conference that they're in. Compare it to Tom Brady. They won 3 Super Bowls. They had a 3 Super Bowl run stretch. And then they had another 3 Super Bowl run stretch. So, but then there was this big break where he didn't have, between both of those periods of time, there was this big break that the New England Patriots didn't win any Super Bowls. Okay, they did make it twice. So I'll give that there. And both those times they did lose. But mainly because you had Peyton Manning, you had Big Ben Roethlisberger. Both those guys retired, and it's just Tom Brady. Oh, Patrick Mahomes was going up in the league. And then Tom Brady left. Tom Brady leaves. The last year that he played as a New England Patriot, Patrick Mahomes ends up winning the Super Bowl. The next year, Tom Brady leaves, goes to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The NFC was a little bit more competitive than the AFC was at the time. But then Joe Burrow comes in, Justin Herbert, Josh Allen. Last year, Russell Wilson, he got traded. I know that struggled. But there were players. Khalil Mack gets traded from the Bears to the Chargers. The Raiders end up getting Devontae Adams from the Green Bay Packers. And I know Raiders and Broncos, their season last year struggled. But that's not where I'm going with this. What I'm saying is the dynasty that happened with Tom Brady, it was because when he was having that stretch of going to Super Bowls and winning them, the AFC wasn't really as good. And now you're going to next year. Now you're going to this year. I think that if there is another big dynasty coming up, it's more likely going to be Philadelphia than Kansas City. Now, I literally spent 23 minutes talking about the NFL. But now it's time to talk about other topics. Elimination Chamber, and that's the reason that instead of canceling and pulling it off for another few weeks, I'm going to go ahead and do the show right now. Elimination Chamber is this week. And there's several matches. I have some predictions for it. I'm going to go ahead and just tell you. Now, I don't have the order up. The Women's Elimination Chamber, I'll just start off with that first. I don't care who's in it, but I cannot see any other person besides Asuka winning the Women's Elimination Chamber. They could, where I see this going is Asuka competes with Bianca Belair in WrestleMania, and part of the reason for this, ever since she came in to the main roster, I don't think maybe a little bit in NXT too. I wasn't really paying attention that much to NXT back then. She's had this intro where she's on her own. And I think since Triple H took over and they went away from this whole feud between Bianca, Alexa, Asuka versus Damage Control, I think that's really the direction that they're trying to go with this. She's part of the intro, goes on my own against the world. And I think they're really taking that and playing off that. I think Asuka wins this. Face Bianca next in the WrestleMania. And besides, they made her like a creepy they pull a creepy twist on Asuka in the Royal Rumble, and they've been playing off that since then. It makes sense. Alexis is doing a little bit of that too. Men's Royal Rumble is the one that not Royal Rumble. Men's Elimination Chamber is the only one that I think is wide open. I mean, if I had to pick a winner, I think it'd be either Austin Theory because and he retains the championship. It's based off some rumors that I've been reading. But I really want Johnny Gargano to get his first title run since joining the main roster. And maybe start off build off of the feud that happened with Theory and Gargano or something like that. But I think that after this, they built a whole Seth Rollins versus The Miz. I think we're going to start seeing more of that being a feud. I think really Miz with Rick Boogs is more of a filling time. They're just doing that to fill time. I don't see where they're going with that storyline. I think Miz versus Seth Rollins is more up there. I don't see how they can do that, but I think that's where they're going to go. Now, here's another one. The main roster, the main event, I don't know if they're going to do this as a main event or not. But Roman Reigns versus Sami Zayn for the undisputed WWE Universal Championship. If Roman Reigns wins, he's going up against Cody. He has not been pinned since 2019 against Baron Corbin. And if Sami wins, you see really a break up against the Bloodline? But either way, the winner of this is going up against Cody for WrestleMania because Cody wins the Royal Rumble. However, where I see this going, I could see a whole lot of storylines being played off of this. I think Sami Zayn wins. And then he only takes the Universal title away, allowing Roman Reigns to keep the WWE title. Sami gets his first pin since 2009. Sami pins Roman, and Roman gets his first pin since 2019. And it's the first time that the Bloodline gets some wear and tear. There's friction going on, as Cody Rhodes says. Allowing Cody to choose whether he wants to go against Roman for the WWE title, which is where I see this going, or if he goes against Sami, as mentioned back in Raw. So I think Roman will win. I think Roman will retain the WWE title, but not the Universal. And I think the Universal will go to Sami. Now, if Sami wins this and Cody doesn't challenge for Sami, I see someone getting very frustrated. I think someone, maybe a Bloodline member, maybe one of Roman's old rivals, get very frustrated with Sami Zayn and try to challenge him for the Universal title. Maybe it's Drew McIntyre. I don't know. But I think that's the storyline they could go off this for. But I think that's really the direction I see that going. And I feel like I'm missing one. Oh, yeah. Bobby Lashley versus Brock Lesnar. The winner of this, I think, will go to Bobby Lashley. And that is what starts the Hurt Business back up again. But this time, gains a member with Omos. I think they're going to build a whole storyline off of that. Maybe he gets assistance from the Hurt Business or something, and expand that feud would expand on the whole storyline of trying to build the Hurt Business back up together. And then last match that I forgot to mention, Edge versus Edge and Edge and Glamazon versus Finn Balor and forgetting names all of a sudden. Finn Balor, the Judgment Day, Rhea Ripley, and Finn Balor against Edge and Beth Phoenix. I think the winner of that will be. I think the winner of that will probably be Edge and Beth Phoenix. Finally, Edge gets a win over the Judgment Day. But I think this will go with interference from somebody. And somebody else comes out and helps Edge to get a singles. It helps Edge to get a win over the Judgment Day, which leads to another Judgment Day match of some sort. I don't see Rhea Ripley being a part of this if they decide to go with this during a WrestleMania. But I think you might see some sort of combination of just all the guys. If they decide, hey, they Street Profits, they had some sort of a feud too, where the Street Profits could team up with Edge to take on the men members of Judgment Day. But you have Rhea Ripley at ringside. Maybe they could do the demon gimmick and pull it up. That's the reports I've been seeing. The demon gimmick. But eventually, I think some way, somewhere, Edge wins this and gets a singles victory. Finally gets a win over the Judgment Day. Last but not least, I was going to tease Cole tonight because the Kyrie and Luka finally made it onto the court. Both on the same court at the same time. Fortunately, didn't happen against my Nuggets as they ended up losing to Denver. They ended up losing to Denver 118-109. Luka in that game had 37 points, but 35 minutes. But they did, however, Luka was playing in this one, but Kyrie was not. I don't know why, but I just know that. Now, the game that did happen, Dallas ended up losing to the Minnesota Timberwolves on Monday, February 13th. And the Timberwolves both Kyrie and Luka ended up getting over 30 points in that game. Kyrie played for 40 minutes and got 36 points. Luka played for 36 minutes, got for 33 points on the court. Now, going off of stats only, I wasn't really impressed on Dallas's side. I think Dallas just had a little bit of worse on everything, except for free throws. They did do a little bit better on the free throw side. 3-point percentage was slightly better for Dallas, as they would shoot 33% from the three, compared to Minnesota's 31. So those couple of things were just slightly better, but the field goals, again, this goes back to what I've been saying on this show. I've said it on the show a couple of times. I said it since Cole became a co-host again on the show. I said it once last year too when I did a couple of live reactions. Dallas made it to the playoffs and made it that far in the playoffs last year because of their field goals. It's because they shot from the two. I get it. Shooting from the three gets you more points. But you're more likely to get the buckets if you shoot from two. And you're more likely to get the buckets if you're actually able to make a free throw. And that is how you're able to get that far. That's how Dallas was able to get that far. It's like NFL. The Philadelphia Eagles made it this far in the playoffs. Made it to the Super Bowl. And they relied very highly on the running game. AFC Conference Championship. Isaiah McKenzie from the Chiefs, very underrated running back, has definitely been able to run the football. And that's how they got to there. That's how both teams get there. And recently, and this is something else that I've seen from the show, and I can't get it out of my head. The running game is how you win playoff games. And it's also protecting the run as well. You can get very far if you can do one of those two. And I feel the same way for 2-point shots. And then to conclude the show, some final thoughts. I'm going to go around and do, as we do weekly, and bring out some final scores. NBA, I've talked about some games that happened in the past, but now it's time for me to talk about some games going on today. The Bucks ended up beating the Bulls today, 112-100. The Timberwolves lost today to the Wizards, 114-106. And the Clippers and the Suns are going right now. Phoenix is currently leading over the Clippers, 71-69, with 6:26 left in the third quarter. Going into the NHL, the Seattle Kraken actually have a 5-goal lead at the end of the second over the Flyers, currently leading 5-0. The Sharks have a 1-0 lead at the end of the second over the Golden Knights. The Blues ended up winning today 4-2 over the New Jersey Devils. The Detroit Red Wings have a 5-2 lead over the Calgary Flames. The Boston Bruins, like I was talking about the Seattle Kraken earlier, they ended up beating the Nashville Predators 5-0. The Carolina Hurricanes have a 6-2 lead over the Montreal Canadiens. The Columbus Blue Jackets beat the New York Jets 3-1. The Florida Panthers, beat the Washington Capitals 6-3. Now, Major League Baseball, some news that's been going on around there. I've said this before. Texas Rangers Jacob deGrom. I like that they were aggressive on pitching. I would have gone with Carlos Correa though, because Jacob deGrom has in the past couple of years have been struggling on injuries, and now already the first preseason game hasn't really started. Okay, they're doing some trying stuff. I get that. First preseason game hasn't even started yet for the Texas Rangers, and Jacob deGrom's already feeling some tightness. That's not too good for us, but it is proving a point. And in MLS, nothing really major has happened on that side. That season hasn't started just yet. The first game for them is going to be happening on February 25th. That actually is, I'll be talking a little bit about the MLS when I do my show in 2 weeks. Won't be doing a show next week, but I will be doing one in 2 weeks, talking a little bit about what has happened in the MLS side of things. As for the National Lacrosse League, that season is still going on the way, currently in week 2. The Colorado Mammoth, they won the whole thing last year, but things are not going as good as I would have liked them to. Colorado Mammoth currently have a 4-4 record, and they're sitting with the fifth place in the West. So things not really going as well as I wanted them to. They only do games once a week, and they only do games once a week, usually either on a Friday or Saturday. Friday, Toronto ended up beating Georgia 11-10. Saskatchewan lost to Calgary 13-6. Rochester beat Halifax 16-14. Albany lost to New York, 14-12. Vancouver ends up losing to Cole's team, Panther City, 14-13. And then Colorado took another loss last week to Calgary, 13-9. Tomorrow, there's a couple of games going on, and I'll go a little bit more into depth next week on lacrosse. NBA is currently having their All-Star break, so I'll be going a little bit more depth into lacrosse, talk more college basketball as well. But there's 2 games going on tomorrow: Calgary versus Vancouver, Saskatchewan versus San Diego. Saturday, you have New York versus Halifax, Colorado versus Panther City. Probably, maybe possibly do something on Saturday to be going on. Cole might want to do Dallas talk on that day. Who knows? New York versus Halifax is also going to be going on at that same time. And so I don't have any other things to talk about. Thank you for everyone who is watching the show today. Stay tuned. You can find this show once a week, usually at 7 I went a little bit later today because Cole wasn't able to make it on. But going on live once a week. You can find the show 7 p.m. and that is in the Pacific time zone. Stay tuned in for stuff that we have next week. Sorry, just looking for the video.